Kawhi Leonard's latest injury means the Clippers' championship window isn't as wide open as it once seemed. With Leonard expected to miss the majority of next season recovering from a partially torn ACL, the Clippers are far less likely to even reach the conference finals again next year. Who knows what kind of player Leonard returns as after suffering his second significant leg injury in just 4 seasons. But Leonard's absence and the uncertainty around his return have created an opportunity for Paul George to remind the basketball world just who the hell he is. The onus is now on George to take control of this Clippers team next season and in the future. And that makes Playoff P, a player whose shortcomings have garnered more attention than his stardom in recent years, one of the season's dark horse MVP candidates. There's an argument to be made that Leonard was the best player in the 2021 playoffs before he got hurt. But alongside Leonard, George was having his own shut up the doubters postseason. In fact, he had been doing it all season. In George's 2020-2021 campaign, he set a career high in true shooting percentage, as well as a career high in assist percentage on the highest usage rate he's had since his days as an Indiana Pacer. To put it simply, George was more efficient despite carrying a heavier burden and became a better playmaker throughout it all. And in 11 games without Leonard, the Clippers went 6-5 while George averaged 26.7 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 4.9 assists on 44, 32, 88 shooting splits. He followed it up in the playoffs, averaging 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and nearly 2 steals on 56.3% true shooting in 8 games without Leonard. George's incredible playoff run included a 37-point performance to help the Clippers take a 3-2 lead in Utah and a clutch 41-point outing in Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals to keep LA alive against the Suns.
In the first 4 games, George on the pull-up, nails a 3. Paul George answers.
The Clippers outscored opponents by 67 points in the 414 playoff minutes that George played without Leonard on the floor, with LA scoring more than 118 points per 100 possessions in those minutes. The trio of George, Nicholas Batum, and Reggie Jackson posted a plus 15.5 net rating in the playoffs, which ranked first in the NBA amongst all trios who played at least 300 minutes. The 2021 playoffs showed us what George, and by extension this entire Clippers team, can be without Leonard heading into next season. And it won't be the first time George has been tasked with the responsibilities of a number 1 option on a contender. This is the same PG-13 who led the Pacers to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals trips in 2013 and 2014, only to lose to the powerhouse Miami Heat. The same PG that finished 3rd in MVP voting in 2019 while leading the Thunder alongside Russell Westbrook before being sent home by Damian Lillard.
Range 3, and it's good!
Yeah. I mean, that's a bad shot. Care what anybody says, that's a bad shot.
So what does next season look like for Paul George? With no Leonard, you can expect George to post a career-high usage rate as he carries more of an offensive load, both as a scorer and as a facilitator for this Clippers team. George averaged 3.5 isolation possessions per game last season and tied for 10th with Giannis Antetokounmpo in isolation efficiency among the 42 players who used at least 100 ISO possessions. Without Kawhi around, those PG ISO opportunities will only increase, as the Clippers will force-feed the team's only remaining star, while head coach Tyronn Lue will presumably rely a lot more on George in late shot clock situations. George will have to become a better pick-and-roll player without Leonard, however, as he produced less than a point per possession as the ball handler on 7.6 pick-and-roll plays per game last season. Where George will seemingly thrive, though, is as a facilitator. He'll be the primary playmaker in an offense where he's the focal point every single night. That will most likely lead to him being doubled a lot, which will allow him to show off his new skills as a playmaker and get his teammates involved. Plus, the acquisition of Eric Bledsoe and the re-signing of Reggie Jackson, despite not being sexy, should allow George to find a healthy balance between scoring and playmaking. And defensively, George is already a top-tier wing defender in the league. There's no doubt that without Leonard next season, it'll be George that has the number 1 responsibility of guarding the team's best player, which will only help his MVP case as one of the premier two-way players in the entire NBA. There's really no telling what kind of player Leonard will be when he first returns to the lineup or how that'll affect the Clippers' championship aspirations. But in the meantime, George will have the usage and overall numbers necessary to join the MVP conversation if the Leonard-less Clippers remain as competitive as they look during the playoffs. And if Leonard does come back at 100% with an alpha version of George having fine-tuned his own game, well then good luck stopping them in the West. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.